Welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I have my friend Matt here.
Hello. Hello,
Matt,
how's it going?
Matt, I'm gonna give you this question I never give anybody. Ready? If I'm gonna
Right,
give
okay.
you Zeuss's Thunderbolt, but Zeuss's Thunderbolt has a special ability of being able to travel anywhere in time when it hits you. Where are you going?
Hang on. So his Thunderbolt can hit me anywhere in time.
If it hits you in the dick, you're probably having more than a couple of issues, but he's going to hit you anywhere. And when you get hit with that lightning bolt, you travel anywhere you want in time, anywhere you want. You can go back to 200 AD, 400 BC. You can go to 5000 AD, whatever.
All right, okay. All right. So as long as he's not hitting me in the dick, I think I don't know, probably if it's going to be back, probably a couple of 100 years. I think just to see what it's like. But as long as I don't have to stay there.
No, you have to stay there when he hits you.
Oh fuck! Then no, about 20 years, I think. So then I can I can use my memories and just
So we talking about 2000s?
yeah. Why not?
You
Why
want to
not?
live in the 2000s? I figured you'd want to live in the 80s since you do a podcast about 80s movies.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be bad to go back there, but then we'd look in no internet, and things like that. So there's a lot.
Is that a bad thing? Is the
I
no
don't know.
internet a bad thing? Because honestly, maybe if Twitter wasn't a giant thing as it is today, we would
Yeah,
probably be a lot happier as people, to be honest with you.
I think maybe. But then, I mean, I'm the type of person that I sometimes won't have Facebook or Twitter on my phone. I put it on there for the podcast, but a lot of the time, it's just I go and check it at a certain time as opposed to just, doing it when I'm bored.
I feel like I want to go back to a time period before maybe there was even basic plumbing. Like you didn't really get in trouble for crapping in the street. People just look at
No.
it like that man's got a lot of ego to crap right in the middle of the street.
So it's sort of something I was watching today. I was watching something on Netflix, Bridgerton, and I thought, yeah, it looks very nice and elegant and stuff. But going back, actually, I don't know. Like you get a toothache, and that's going to be horrible, man.
Dude, I just got done dealing with the dentist and it's not even close to done. He messed up and I have to go back. So, dude, trying to do these podcasts with mouth pain is the worst feeling I've ever had in the world. But he's like, I got painkillers for you. I was like, all right, all right.
Oh no, I a couple of years ago I cracked a tooth, and I thought, oh, that's right, I'll be able to fix it. No, 3 grand later and an implant. I'm like, oh, the pain I've never felt, and like I felt like a cabinet being put together.
That's literally what I deal with. He's like, let's hope it's not cracked. And I'm like, dude, I think you cracked it when you did it. Like it doesn't feel right. It's very sensitive to heat and cold. And honestly, to talk, it hurts. But he was like, well, when do you want to see if we can look at it again and pull it out? I'm like, well, this happens to be the time we're recording right now is around close to coming up to the new year. He's like, well, my office isn't open until the new year. I'm like, okay. So we'll do January 1st. He goes, oh, by the way, I'm actually being tested for COVID because someone in our office had it. And I'm like, bro, you had your fucking hands in my mouth. Like,
He tells you that afterwards, yeah.
yeah, like fuck. Like, if I don't get it, then I guess I must be like the I Am Legend. Is that an 80s movie? That's not an 80s movie.
No. I don't know if there was anything before the Will Smith one. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Like I said, I don't know 80s films, so this is going to be a fun and
You've
entertaining
got to know a few.
podcast.
You've got to know a few. Like so, Goonies, you must know, or Back to the Future, you
Never
must know.
seen Goonies. I've seen Back to the Future, and I love that movie. Shout out to Robert Rice. He makes a hot sauce after it.
So, do you know what I mean? It's that's a fantastic. I mean, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, 80s movies.
Okay, fuck. I do love those.
Yeah, so there's lots that are in the 80s, but because they're timeless, that's the thing. I mean, I'm going back and looking at films I've never even looked at on this one, and it's really interesting. Some have held up really well, some have not held up at all.
Do you think that they're better now that you're watching them and you've never seen them for the first time back in the day? Or do you think maybe if you saw them when they first came out in theaters back then, you'd be like, wow, this is complete dog shit?
I think if you've grown up with them, you've probably got more of an affinity for them than if you watch them now, because you're probably not as forgiving now when you're older. But you've got the rose tinted glasses actually if you grew up with them.
Well, it's hard to see where movies have come from. I mean, now if you watch like Avatar and then you try and watch something like Zombie Strippers that came out in like 1997, it's just fucking awful. It's like trying to compare dirt with water. It doesn't make any sense.
No, I did love Avatar, but that's quite a while ago now, though, isn't it? It's like 2009.
Yeah, we're aging pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I hate to start. I wasn't like a teenager in the 80s. I was 2 when the 80s started. So
That's like my thing of the 90s, though. What I think I always consider like I love the 90s, but people are like, you
mhm,
don't really actually love the 90s. You love the 2000s. I'm like, what do you mean? Because I was born 97.
mhm.
So I look at everything I love, like Johnny Bravo or something like that. That's early 90s. Yeah. But then Courage
Yeah,
the Cowardly Dog and all this stuff, they're like, no, that's 2000s. I'm like crossed in between them both. I'm like, if you've ever been to a time zone where it's like one house over is fucking another state or another country and it's like a
yeah.
different hour shift. So it's like time travel jumping back. That's me in the 90s and the 2000s. I keep thinking everything I love is in the 90s. Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yeah, it's 90s, but it's mostly 2000s. I'm like, well, where do I fall? Where is my allegiance lie?
This is it. I mean, I was 78. I don't see all the kids' telly and stuff I remember from the 80s. But then when it came to music, and I wasn't getting into that till I was in the 90s. So yeah,
What was a bigger inspiration to you, movies or music?
it's definitely always been movies. I think my dad had a big record collection, so I thought, right, well, I'm gonna build up a big video collection, right? And I did. I've like all these videotapes. I thought they're gonna be worth something one day, I tell you. And so
That's
I had
funny
like,
because you could have easily went with it and been like, I'm gonna read all these records that he has off the wall. I'm gonna keep trying to play these and learn music. My whole family's music, but I
mhm,
fucking love movies way more. Like everyone else
yeah,
is like, I love this band. I love this band. My parents work radio, so we would always get CDs when they would come home and be like, hey, this is the new album just came out. We got to play it on air. We got 4 copies. So I took one and it's like, here's an album. I was like, I'm good. I'm gonna keep rewatching this Transformers DVD over and over and over again.
what Transformers the movie?
Yeah.
That was phenomenal. The Stan Bush song in it as well. You got the touch. Fantastic.
Are we talking about like the old school cartoon movie? Or talking about the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I'm
okay?
talking about the old school cartoon. Sorry, you're
Uh,
talking about the new movie,
I'm about
aren't
to
you?
say there's an age shift here, so I'm thinking Michael Bay.
No, okay. Less said about that,
It's
the
not the
better, I guess.
best. I admit, every movie I fucking love, people hate. That's fine. You can shit on it. I love the Green Lantern.
Bumblebee, though. Bumblebee, I really liked.
I like the character. Did you like the actual movie Bumblebee though?
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
did. I thought it was the best thing that happened to Transformers
people
since.
people give that movie a lot of crap. I think honestly it was probably easier. Like imagine being a director back then and being a director now. Back then it
Mm.
was so fucking easy. Oh my god, like you could just create a film. It could be a two pieces of shit having sex. Next thing you know, it's like it's top of the charts because there's not anything else out there. It's like
I think I've seen that one. Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You try and create something now, and there's like a billion people that are just shitting on it because it didn't have really good CGI. It's like you're lucky we even have CGI. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't a thing back then. Back in the day, there like if you read the accounts of actors when they first like acting first became a thing and it was starting to be on the screen and everything like that, like is it Smokey and the Bandit, where
Hmm.
the guy he actually slapped the girl in the thing, and a lot of people gave the guy who played 007, the original guy who just died recently.
Sean Connery. Yeah.
Yeah, they gave him a lot of shit for the way he acted towards women. I'm like, that was the thing back then, though. Like, you understand that's just how the time period has shifted. But if he didn't actually hit the women, like, I'm not rationalizing what he did. But what I'm
No.
saying
No.
is, when he would go, like, there was a guy that had fired off a gun, and the guy, like, didn't even really flinch that a gun's being fired off. And he goes, you're not acting like a gun is being shot at you. And the guy goes, I've never been shot at with a gun. And he goes, okay. And he pulls out a real gun and shoots right beside him. He goes, holy shit. He goes, now you know how to act like it. Act like it.
Nice. I mean, I think you do find that though with certainly a lot of film, a lot of attitudes you see have changed. You kind of go, yeah, it was a different time and things like that.
I know
I guess.
you got to analyze all aspects of a film, but then you get a lot of shit if you try and cover up for one of them. And it's funny because even the new ones are getting shit more than the old ones did, and the old
Yeah,
ones have a lot more flaws in them. Like they really do stand the test of time. Naked Gun. I don't know if that's an '80s film, but it is beautiful.
I think it's on the verge. It's like it must be 80s, 90s.
I'm about to
Yeah, I
say
don't.
OJ went to jail in the '90s. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it must be. I think late 80s, early 90s.
Well,
Yeah,
that
easy.
film holds up. But then if you look at let's pick a movie that just came out. Wonder Woman 84, whatever the hell it's called.
Oh,
Yeah. everyone's shitting on it. And I'm like, imagine just the CGI that went behind that, where she's flying in the air, grabbing on Thunderbolts. Back in the day, they would actually have to try and jump out of a plane and grab Thunderbolts. So like they imagine, I just want to see the blooper reel of her like sitting in a green screen room and on a machine, and they're just like flying her around. And like, guy, hey, when this is all over with, you're going to look fucking great. And then they put it in the theater on the screen. She's like, wow, I'm actually flying through the clouds. It's like, yeah, because that's technology today.
It is. I mean, but the thing is, one of my favorite films of all time, and this is what, because this is what got me into acting, is in wanting to be an actor, was Superman the movie. So I watched that like over and over again when I was growing up. Yeah, and I've watched it again recently. It doesn't look bad, but when you compare it to like the new DC films, they don't look. Obviously, it's not as polished. But I tell you what, that film is head and shoulders above anything that DC's putting out now, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? It's Christopher Reeve. He walks on screen and you've got hope, and then you've got Henry Cavill walks on screen and you've got
abs, lots of abs.
Abs and moody, and that's it. But whereas Christopher Reeve was so, that was it. You smiled when he walked on screen. Now you're just gonna go, oh, here he is. Then all right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, the shift of the 80s, I think, in my opinion, is probably like even in the 80s and 90s. I'm going to compare it to the 90s because that's what I know more about. At least I like to think I know more about the 90s. But like looking at it, I'm like, I think it was a hit or miss. Like there was either some really good ones that really stood the test of time where you watch them today, you're like, fuck. Like everyone loves Die Hard. Me, not a fan. I've seen probably bits and pieces of it. Haven't seen the full thing. I don't really care to. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. I'm in or I'm out.
I'm not in Lord of the Rings. No.
All right. I'm glad we can
agree on popular, this. But
that could have went real bad. A lot of people usually get defensive. Like, what did you just say? I'm like, I didn't like Forrest Gump either. You got a problem with that? And they're like, what?
I tell you what. No, this is no joke. I went to the cinema with a friend who's a Lord of the Rings fan. And these people in front of us, when we were allowed to be near people, they said, have you seen it yet? And I went, no, it's the first time. They went, this is our 5th time. It's amazing. I said, I haven't read the books. They said, oh, you don't need to have read the books. So bumped into the beginning on the way out. They went, what do you think? I went, yeah, it's all right. And they went, oh, it's because you haven't read the books. I was like, oh, fuck. Do you know what I mean?
Same shit with Harry Potter. Everyone's like, oh, did you read the books? I'm like, no, I haven't read the books. So you don't really need to read the books. And then after the movie, it's like, it was okay. It was pretty good. But, oh, yeah, but you still need to read the books. It's like, well, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? What spell did you cast on my head that made me fall into this trap? It doesn't make sense. But, like, honestly, if you look at the movies back in the day, like I was saying, either they stood the test of time or they didn't.
Yeah.
But I think that's also a product of what happens when you're involved in the 80s and what's the giant drug of choice that is involved in the 80s. Think it through. There's only a couple.
Drug of choice in the 80s, cocaine, I guess.
Yes. So if you watch a lot of those films where you're like, what the fuck is happening? It's because a lot of them are very, very coked up and they just start throwing shit together. It's like, probably maybe Sharknado was involved in that too. Like that doesn't make any sense how that's a movie. You're obviously on coke when you're writing that.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of films you think, how did that get made when there's a lot of good stuff out there not getting made? Do you know what I mean? Like,
is Jaws an 80s film?
It's not. No, it's 70s. And
what?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I might be a fan of the 70s. I know Eric Foreman and Red Foreman are involved in that one.
I've never seen Jaws. That's the worst thing. The guy I do the podcast with, he berates me all the time for having never seen Jaws.
You've never seen Jaws?
Pardon the pun, but I missed the boat. You know, by the time I would have got around to watching it, I would have like kind of gone, oh, it's a bit dated. You know, again,
it's fine if you missed the boat because they needed a bigger one. That's like the main catchphrase. I can't believe you don't know Brody Smith. Oh my God, Lieutenant Brody, whatever his name was, the main guy, the fisherman guy with the glasses. Somebody put up a picture of The Rock Johnson when he made the movie Baywatch. Or put up David Hasselhoff. And then there was a meme below it that had David Brody with a cigarette in his mouth. And he goes, I was doing this shit before you guys were doing it. And I was like, that's so true. You were before that. Man, if Jaws is a 70s film, that's really fucking good for back then. It really kind of shows you the quality you have to put in the films to make it stand the test of time. I mean, they actually went out there. There was no CGI. There was no... Like, you ever see pictures of the Titanic when it was being filmed with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
They're sitting in freezing cold water, like the director's wearing a wetsuit, like sitting there
Yes.
telling Jack how to.
He's got the
That's
giant welly things on. Yeah.
all my. I don't know if I was an actor, like if you were an actor, would you be able to sit in freezing cold water and then like perform? I couldn't do that. I'd be sitting there like, when can I get out?
Yeah. I think I could. I think I could. But yeah,
How much
uh,
cocaine are you on there, sir?
I'm not, man. But I mean, I'm not saying I'm a particular. I mean, I'm an actor, a professional actor, and
Oh,
and I, I've done a lot of stuff, that I've been asked to do by a director. Just kind of go, okay, because you just do it.
has anybody ever said something to you and you wish you had prior information that would have been like, yeah, that makes sense? You know, when you just told me you're an actor, I was like, well, that would have been something nice to know 5 fucking minutes ago.
Yeah, well, that kind of shows just how off the cuff this conversation is. Like, we've not prepped anything. We've not we're just chatting. That's the really cool thing about this. I'm really liking it.
That's the hard parts, though. A lot of people don't understand it. Sometimes it's easier to be scripted and have stuff coming in, but when you're just going off the top of your dome, it's real, and sometimes it goes crazy. It's like if I was ever going to film a movie and I had to rehearse lines, I would read them, but I would want to know what I would be like if I just acted it out. Like
Yeah.
recently I started helping out with my buddy who was on in the past as a guest in his audio drama he's creating. It's like kind of like a version of Fallout where it's like a nuclear wasteland and all these things. And he gives me a scripted line of characters. And I'm looking
Hmm.
at it, I'm like, how do you want, what voice do you want him to sound like? He's like, I want like an old Southern voice, like a deep kind of Sam Elliott style voice. And I'm like, okay.
That's pretty good. That's cool, man.
I
Yeah.
was like, I can do that, but can I change the lines? And he goes, I want you to make this character your own. So I fucking just started messing with his lines. And it's not to discredit him, but that was a very, very big issue in popular film back in the day, was that if you didn't give a mention, if you did something that might have messed up a writing script or something,
Mhm.
the writers of that would kill you off or they would be pissed off about it. Like they had a bunch of writers guilds, a guild of people that would come together, groups of people that would write for films and talk about scenes and certain dynamics to make maybe improve the film. If you didn't mention the names of the people that got you that Grammy, you were fucking writ off. It happened in an episode of Friends when Joey Tribbiani gets on stage or he gets in an interview and he was playing in that one, what's that drama show that he was starring on?
Is it Days of Our Lives or something?
Yeah, Days of Our Lives. Exact. Are you a Friends fan?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, yeah.
How about
Growing up,
that
I was.
Jennifer Aniston?
I love Jennifer Aniston. Yeah, but I think I was always. I love Monica as well. Though I was like, oh, Courtney
Yeah, but
Cox.
Jennifer Aniston ages like good. She doesn't she ages well, very well.
Yes, she does. Yeah, yeah.
Courtney Cox when she did Cougar Town, I was like, damn, what happened? You look like you went through plastic surgery.
Yeah, I watched a bit of Cougar Town. I watched a little bit of it. I just one as I fell out with, not just because it just there's so much on, isn't there? And you just sometimes lose track.
I think at that point, I always refer to, especially back in the day of old times of films, I had listened to, especially Rob Lowe on his own podcast. And he talks about like being a child star back in like the 80s and 70s is completely different than being a child star now. Like now, like you can lose that shit in an instant. But back in the
Mm.
day, like you were on magazines, you were hung up on girls' walls. Now it's like, what? You got a fucking iPad in the wall. And maybe you can ask Amazon Alexa or whatever the fuck to, play your voice or sex noises in the form of your voice so they can jack off to it later. But back in the day, it was a poster taped to your ceiling or taped to the back of your door.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, Rob Lowe, in fact, was taped to the back of a door in Lost Boys. So that was a little homage. He was up on Corey Haim's room.
And when they were filming Lost Boys, did you know that they would let them drink even though they were only like 15 or 16 years old? They would let them drink.
But you know what? I've got a very well had a very Irish grandmother who she was giving me booze when I was 9.
You
You
couldn't do
know,
that today, though. You could
at Christmas
not.
time she was bringing across the Irish cream, and I'm like 9 years old, going, "Yeah, this is lovely." So
Why am I getting really political the more I eat of this thing?
honestly, she used to come across from Ireland, and her suitcase used to make a chinking noise because she'd be bringing bottles like we didn't have booze in England or something. She would just properly come across with a suitcase full of alcohol. Don't know, probably no clothes, but just alcohol.
I love it when you're a kid and you try a beer for the first time and you spit it out like this tastes horrible. Then you go for a second sip and then you just slowly learn to like it from there.
You start to like it, and then you crave it on a hot summer's day. Yeah.
I think it's because you experience it's like the first time trying something that's been talked up so much, like this must be awesome. And then you try it. That's why when anybody ever gives me a movie recommendation, dude,
Uh-huh.
best movie in the world, best thing. If I keep seeing like Amazon #1 bestseller on a book or some shit, I immediately go in thinking that I'm gonna hate this film because I want to have low expectations. So if it
Mhm.
doesn't proceed these unsurmountable expectations, you're not upset. You're not trying to kill yourself over buying a $6 movie ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, no, yeah, I get you. And that's the thing at the moment, isn't it? Being able to actually go to the cinema. I miss that. I really miss that. So
I,
just sat there and just doing the big screen experience.
I mean, it's definitely a different vibe. I mean, I never
Yeah.
saw Avengers Endgame in theaters on the
Hmm.
concept of it's like a 3.5 hour long movie. And I'm
Yeah.
not the type of guy that can sit for 3.5 hours without having to get up to piss once or twice. So
Okay.
I watched it on my phone while I was going to the bathroom, the full 3 hour movie. And
Spent the entire time in the bathroom.
yeah, I got to the part where they meet Thanos at the ending, that giant fight scene, and I went to stand up, and my legs were asleep because I had my elbows on my knees, like when you're leaning over watching, and I went to stand up and my legs were asleep, and I went headfirst into my towel rack, like fucking hard, dude. Like I almost gave myself a concussion.
I can imagine. Right? So the Russos, if they're filming that, right, they're going to go, yeah, this is really intended for the big screen, not knowing that somebody's going to be sat there on their toilet watching it on their phone.
And I was there longer than the 2.5 hours it took to get to that scene because I had to keep pausing it because it kept buffering. So I was really there for like a good afternoon. Like a
Oh,
lot of
great.
people are like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom for 10 minutes. No, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll see you tomorrow. It's like, what do you mean you see me tomorrow? It's like I'm gonna be in here for a very long time.
Excellent. That's brilliant.
If you have a TV in there, would you ever want to leave? That's the question.
I've got sadly in my bedroom. That's my place that I love to watch TV because I think it's 55-inch in my bedroom,
I have
and I love,
55-inch too.
and it's great, isn't it? You get to lay in bed. I've got a nice Simba mattress, and it's all comfortable. LEDs everywhere, and I'm like, do you know what?
Entitlement high five.
This is it. So, yeah, I did really enjoy a good duvet day.
What goes into your movie experience? Like, what's the vibe you get when you gotta watch a movie? Like, for me, I need to be like, if I'm gonna watch a movie in my bedroom, I can't lay in full clothing. I need to be like only shirt, pants, or like shorts, like sweatpants, and then I'll
Mm,
lay down and I need to have a coffee beside me or a drink beside me, and I like to just sit with like a pillow over my stomach and just with my back against the wall and just watch a nice film.
yeah, similar. I'm always like shorts and I live in shorts and t-shirts. Unless it's really cold outside, even still, I'll wear it inside until I've got to go out, and I'll go, okay, jeans then, okay. So I'm shorts and t-shirt, and yeah, I do appreciate a good milkshake, but if I'm being good, which I normally am, it's just water.
Does it make me seem like a piece of shit if I say there's no better feeling than coming home and just taking your pants off? Like that feeling of fuck, the day is over with. I can take the belt off. I can
Yeah.
just unzip the pants and just get in the boxers and have free flow emotion.
I do that now, especially with like the pandemic. I get back, and obviously you don't want the clothes that you've been sort of wearing to the supermarket or something. You don't be wearing those at home. So I'm like straight away walking off with the clothes and into a new outfit, shall we say? Slip
I
into something more comfortable.
what all right, so I'm gonna ask you since we're basically at the new year, the beginning of this New Year's resolution type thing. What would you
Mm.
consider your New Year's resolution? What's one thing you want to add? What's one thing you want to do? I want to try and do bonfires. I really want to. I know I used to do them a lot, but I think the main thing for me now was like I don't like smelling like campfire for a couple days after you've already had the fire.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that.
It's like being in a room with like it's okay if you smoke cigarettes or whatever, but if you don't smoke cigarettes and you just wash your clothes and you go over someone's house that smokes a lot of cigarettes in their house, you're
Yeah.
fucked, man. Your clothes reek of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an ex-smoker as well, so so I'm really sensitive to it. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're a smoker. You can smell it, and I didn't realize when I smoked how prominent it is.
Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I vape, but nobody's fucking smelling like it 8 days
no,
after they
same
come to
here,
my house.
same here. Yeah, so I'm exactly the same, absolutely the same. So there's us vaping, watching movies on a 55-inch television in our rooms. That's it. Absolutely, I love that.
And there's no like risk of like how back in the day people would smoke cigarettes and like fall asleep in bed and then their house catches on fire. There's none of that with vaping. It's just you fucking set it down or you fall asleep and you wake up and there's juice on your bed or
Yeah,
something.
I mean, I suppose the only thing is the battery exploding, and there we go. That's it.
Jesus, man. Why would you put that in my head?
You know what I mean? You're charging it at night. Ooh.
That's like the whole thing when yeah, I just had to throw out a battery the other day because when I put it in the thing, a spark hit, and I was like, "What is that?" And then every time I plugged it in my vape, it wasn't working. But every time I put it in the charger, it kept sparking. I was like, "This battery's probably done. I know I'm supposed to dispose of this in a hazard bin, but instead I'm going to throw it in my trash can. And when the guy who dumps my trash throws it in the trash can, maybe he'll get a fucking surprise because he leaves my trash can in the middle of my driveway when he dumps the trash. I'm like, wheel it off to the side so I can actually back out my car. This makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying. But no, hopefully your vape will be fine
You
and it will
put that
not
in my
explode.
head, like the
I know I
article
do. I
I
know I
read
do.
about when batteries and cell phones used to explode. And one of them happened in a movie theater. And that's the one I remember specifically because a guy was talking on his phone in the movie theater. And I was like, that's karma. You fucking not supposed to be on your phone in a movie theater. And one just blew up in your head.
Yeah, well, also they had that thing about never taking a phone call when you're filling your car up, because of sparks or something like that.
I think
Is that a thing in the
it's the
States?
signals or something. You're not supposed to pump your gas and be on the phone. But I'm like, I've played music on my phone when I got out of my car and pumped gas and then got right back in it. I don't see the whole phone thing. I think that's just like a so you're actually paying attention to what you're doing. I mean, how many people were pumping gas into their car and then they're on their
Yeah.
phone and not paying attention? Like I only wanted to put $10 in my tank, but I put 11.26. It's like, sorry, man, we can't refund you $1.26 of gas. You spent that much.
See, and that's the difference. 'Cause I got caught out when me and a friend went to Florida for my 40th a couple of years ago, and we were waiting. Right, also your pumps are different to ours, so your unleaded is what is it? Your diesel is one color. Is it green? Your diesel pump and
You mean
your
the
unleaded.
color of the button to
Yeah,
hit
yeah.
or the gas?
No, the actual hose that you take out and put in the car.
Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's yellow.
Yeah, so we were getting caught out. So we were about to put the wrong one in because it's different over here. But then also we're waiting for ages, going, what? Why are they not starting the pump? And you've got to pay first across there, don't you? You pay and then you pump. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we do it the other way around. We pump and then we pay.
We used to do that back in the day when someone used to pump your gas for you. Like the weirdest thing, I brought this up a couple of times in the past episodes, but like I was at a gas station and I'm like, this is how the world is so fucking different. I went to a gas station and I pull up to a thing and I'm pumping my gas and a woman's in front of me and she's like grabbing her card and like looking fucking clueless. And I'm like looking at her like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what are you doing? What like she ended up coming over to me and going, "Excuse me, how do you can you show me how to pump my gas?" And she's from Jersey, and I'm like, "What do you mean pump your gas? You've never pumped your own gas before?" And she's like, "Well, I'm from Jersey and we don't pump our own gas." And I'm like, what fucking land do you live in where people pump your gas for you? And she's like, everybody in Jersey, it's illegal to pump your own gas. People pump it for you. I was like, what? Like, and I found out there's only 2 states in the United States that do that. And I'm like, that's just like shows you what you don't even realize is somebody's like newest thing to learn is somebody else's everyday task.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I've never been served at a petrol station before. We've always done it ourselves. But I've just got out of that. I've just bought an electric car, so I'm not using a petrol station anymore.
You're one of those guys. Is it harder to use your car since it's electric?
No, it's amazing, man. I get a couple 100 miles out of it. A lot of the work I do is about 80 miles round trip. So, and I get a couple of 100 miles out of it. I just plug it in at night time. That's it. And it's
See, I don't like that because I forget to plug in my headphones at night. So then next thing I know, I'm waking up to dead headphones.
Yeah, yeah, there is that.
So this
No,
is like if you don't plug in your car at night, you miss your fucking job interview. Like it's a big
well,
difference.
yeah. I mean, it's just become a nice way of life for me, just not having to stop and get fuel anymore.
I get it. I feel like I've been getting lazy recently because I'm really not liking to get out of my car and get gas. But then I also maybe correlated to the fact that the climate is getting colder.
Hmm.
And every time I get out of my car, I'm freezing my nuts off while I'm trying to pump my gas. So I'm like, I'll just get it next time I go out. Oh, I'm only going because I only go to work and then back home. I don't really go out like
Yeah,
exploring the world unless I'm going to the grocery store. So it's like I only need to fill up my car maybe once a week. I'm not that far away from work. So it's like it's not that big of an issue. But every time, like
no.
I'm in a car now that my gas meter doesn't work. So
Oh,
you can
oh,
pop
that's
into it. It could be
scandal.
full tank, and then you could park the car, go inside, wake up the next day, and get in your car, and it could be at a quarter tank. You don't know because the thing goes down so slow. So I'm like, well, when my car starts going, like starts sputtering while I'm driving, I'm like, I know to fill up my car.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean that would terrify me, but I am the one that used to when I was a teenager. Certainly, it would always be on red. Like I'd always put like 5 quid's worth of fuel in or something, and think, that'll get me ages. That'll do. That'll do. And now, yeah,
I think the issue is when you like, because I always fill up my car all the way, but then once I do that, I feel like I can go exploring as much as I want, and then I'm just wasting gas driving around just to drive. How many times have I left my house, gotten in my car, drove all the way out of my neighborhood, out onto the main freeway, gotten all the way halfway to Walmart, maybe 10, 15 minutes down the road, and then just been
yeah.
like, why am I going here? And then just turned around because I was bored as shit and there was nothing to do. That was a waste of gas. I've done that so many times.
I do I do something which is just crazy. I've got a Tesco very near me, but it hasn't got a charging point. So I drive to the one that's a bit further away, plug my car in, do my shopping, and then drive home. Like, yeah, may as well get the free charge. So
It's really bad when honestly, if I'm going to correlate this, the most exciting thing in my life is going to the grocery store. Like I
that's the
understand
most
why
exciting about all of our lives at the moment, though,
I'm
isn't
like,
it?
I'm
That's
pretty sure that's why my grandma was always like, "Are we going grocery shopping? Are we going grocery shopping?" I'm like, why do you fucking love it so much? It's so horrible. It's like, oh, you're inside your house all day, and the only time you get to go out is if you're going to the store because it gives you something to do. So you're not just driving around like an asshole with wandering aimlessly.
what time do you go? What time do you do your shopping then?
When Walmart was 24 hours, I would be at shopping at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I like to go late, really late. So there's
That's
nobody.
early. What are you talking about? I go to bed at 5
Well,
p.m.
okay, so late, early, I guess. But I mean, I normally finish work about 10 o'clock at night. So then about 11, 12, I'm at the store getting my shopping. And yeah, that's the time I really like it.
I just had somebody say something to me today. They're like, you know what the best thing in the world is, and I know it's gonna sound shitty saying it, but I fucking love it when nobody else is up. And I'm like, right? I'm like, that's why I'm an insomniac. So when I do sleep, it's from like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. and then I'm up the rest of the night. So it's like I worked out at 1 a.m. I did all these
Hmm.
types of things. Like I got everything done. So then by the time, 7 a.m. rolls up and the sun's coming up, I already got all my shit done. And then people could start messaging me and berating me with all their problems or something. I'm like, yeah, I can handle it all now. Like before I
Yeah,
talk to you, before I talk to anybody on this podcast, I have to work out because there's just something in my head that's like, I can't talk to you. I'm not this guy that you're talking to now. I'm some other guy that's like, just leave me alone. Let me
hmm,
let me die in peace. Like it's this whole like thing of like I just have no withstand, I guess, or tolerance. It's because I have so much going on in my own head. But then once I get done working out, like the demons calm down and I'm like, oh, I can fucking think. It's like when I understand why people love movie theaters so much
hmm.
because that's your sense of therapy. That's your release. That's the thing you do that levels you and helps you cope with a lot of the shit that goes on today. I get it. That's why I'm like, when these lockdowns started happening, people were fighting other people saying, well, you don't like going to movie theaters and all this stuff. Well, you're just selfish. All you care about is the movie theaters. You don't care about people dying. No, that's not it. It's about having something you love and something being taken away from you, which is like
Yeah.
how you've learned to make your routines. That change factor. It's so difficult for people to be able to grasp.
Yeah, I mean, because I love the gym as well, and I normally go at night time when it's starting to tail off, as opposed to first thing in the morning. So first thing in the morning is my coffee, my food, my first and second breakfast, and then it's about an hour and a half before I can leave to go to work. But at night time, get to the gym when it's quiet. I've missed that because I personally don't feel right going back into a gym yet. That's just me. Same as the cinema. I've not felt right going back into a cinema. Yeah, I'm just trying to limit as much contact as possible. So I've got a treadmill, so I just use that. And
I bought a cycle bike for my room. So I cycled while watching Deadpool 1, watched Deadpool 2, and then I watched the whole season 3 of Rick and Morty all from 8 p.m. till 4 a.m. And then I went right into work.
I love Rick and Morty. I absolutely love Rick and Morty.
It's a great show, but like I work at a gym as my day job. So there's a little information for you, like how you told me you're an actor. So
Oh
there's
yeah,
mine.
but I did my research. I knew that. I've heard you being interviewed on another podcast, so I knew that was.
I was being interviewed on another podcast. Whose podcast
Yes.
was I on?
Pods Like Us, I believe.
Son of a bitch, Martin or Marv. How are you doing,
Yeah.
buddy? I hope he's listening to this. I'll make sure I tag him. Yeah, man. I reached
Yeah,
out.
no,
His
listen,
story is
I
hilarious.
started listening to yours, and then through listening to yours, I heard his. So then I started listening to his. So it's quite a nice community, just listening to all these different creators.
I reached out to get him when I was on episode 156. I'm on 650 something right now. So
Wow.
he said, not now, maybe later. But the weird thing is, and I hope he's listening to this. I'll make sure I tag him. Marv, this is true. His job and our hours are different. He's 5 hours ahead of me. So I would just be woken up in the middle of the night at 9 p.m. or something. When I'm asleep, I just wake up to my phone saying a notification that you've been tagged in, and it's Marv taking a picture or a screenshot of his playlist and putting it up saying listening to Out of the Blank right now. And I'm like,
oh, that's nice, man.
The dude doesn't want to go on my podcast, but he's listening to me. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, that's cool. And then eventually he's like, hey, I'm trying to start a podcast. How can you help me start one? I'm like, let's do a podcast episode. We filmed one for his show. I was his first guest. I, have been giving him all the little tips and tricks to kind of grow it how it is. And now he has it how it is. So I'm like, bam,
that's cool, man.
fucking
Yeah.
glad to finally get you on almost a year and a half later.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because I enjoyed listening to. I've always listened to podcasts, right? I mean, as far as I can remember, and me and Darren, who I do 80s Adventure with, we started one back in 2009. We only did 4 episodes, and it was a Doctor Who one. And life got in the way. I mean, I left the country for a couple of years, but we decided last year to start this one. And through that and Twitter, I've started listening to so many more podcasts. It's brilliant, and there's a lot out there that I'm really, really liking. So
I started liking the fact that everyone I keep thinking I'm trying to get on the podcast and I'm talking to, they all know each other. And it's like, hey, this guy you'd really like. And it's like, oh my God, wait, I was trying to get you also. It's like, oh, you're all really, really good. Did I just fall into a secret niche group of you podcasters? Because I've been by myself for the past 2.5 years. I help people start them, but I never wanted to be under a podcast network because I don't like, oh, you have to give this person a shout out. You have to do this. I'm like, no, if you want me to give you a shout out, message me, ask me, and I'll see what I can do. I'm not gonna, I don't I've taken this year alone in the past couple of months. I've really tried my hardest to be off social media because I think it has very addictive qualities to it. And I don't for instance, when I message someone for the podcast, I'm messaging people from all over. So either you're 5 hours ahead, somebody in China right now, it's 18 hours ahead. It's all these different time zones. So imagine trying to get sleep and your phone just blowing up like a fucking bomb because you're getting people messaging you when they're off work, and it's just constant DMs. So it's I was like, I have to isolate this thing from me. So I had to go through my settings one day while I was extremely hammered. I'm not going to lie. I got a bottle of whiskey as a gift. So I was like, let me drink this. And after a couple sips
showed me the bottle. It looked amazing. The peanut butter one.
After you're a couple sips in, you get hit and it's like, okay, I drank way too much. So you're trying not to die. And then you're also looking through your phone settings and trying your best to manage. I was managing my notifications. So I turned off everything for Twitter besides private messages and a lot of notifications on Instagram and stuff. So my phone never really alerts me of new follows or anything like that, or tweets you're mentioned in, because that stuff will completely just take up your time if you sit there and let your phone just notification. Next thing you know, you're missing out on key aspects of life, fucking, I don't know, fucking. That's a perfect one. You miss out on
fucking. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. I'm the same when my phone's on silent, that's it. I don't look at it. That's another thing is people that say, oh, I couldn't get into the film, I was on my phone a lot. Switch your phone off when you're watching a film. That's why I have to switch my phone off.
Telling people to switch their phone off in a film is like asking them to bring up their firstborn child as a sacrifice. Like, that is the most. And the funny thing is, if you know the film you're picking and you click it to watch it, you won't touch your phone. But then when you're trying to get someone interested into that film, they're on their fucking phone 24/7. I don't know how many times in my family.
I want to show you this, and no, get off. Get off. I'm trying to show you this.
But I'm
film.
watching. Yeah. I am watching. No, you're not. You're staring at your screen on Facebook Messenger, just poking random people, asking them, inviting them to some fucking group you don't want to go to. Join my club called Trashaholics, where we sort through your fucking trash on Saturdays. It's like, I don't.
Or you get a notification, they've tagged you that they're watching this film with you. You're like, I know you're watching this film with me. You sat next to me.
Oh, that's the worst. I love it when they make a Facebook status about it, like watching a film considered marked safe. I'm like, oh man. It's like, I think it started at the era of when you see people take pictures at like a bonfire or a party, and they would hold a beer up, but they wouldn't just hold a beer up like they were drinking it. They would hold it with the fucking logo perfectly to the fucking camera, just so everyone sees that and goes, they're partying, they're drinking Miller Lights. I'm like, dude, just fucking take a picture, put the beer down, and be in the actual moment of shit. It's like this validation you get through social media where it's like, oh, people got to know that I'm part. I used to, you're going to hear me go on another rant. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So there's this guy who now is like, what I would say is like a popular bodyguard or some shit, which doesn't make sense to me, because if I had a knife, I could easily take you out. But he's been like doing all these like acts of charity and stuff and posting it on social media, all because he's getting attention of it through social media. So he's not actually doing it out of the kindness of his heart. He's doing it because he gets likes and shares. Well, I remember a long time ago, before he became this giant, like, popular bodyguard or whatever, is that we were in we were playing basketball at a rec center. Basketball, dribble, shoot, not football and soccer mixed up between countries.
No, I know what basketball is.
Just make sure. But we were playing basketball at a rec center, and he's on his phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm making a post. I'm like, making a post about what? It's 10 o'clock at night. He goes, I want people to know that we're here. And I'm like, what do you mean we're here? He's like, I need to make a post, let people know. And he's like, let people know. And he kept nodding his head. I specifically remember him going, let people know. And I just look over at my other buddy who's just shooting hoops, and I'm like, let people know what? He goes, in case they want to join us. I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night. Nobody's coming to the fucking rec center at 11 o'clock at night to play basketball because they saw your Facebook post. He goes, yeah, but I want the people to know, man. And then he would just start posting again. I'm like, wow. Like, that's a grasp of social media where you consider your validation is prime when you're looking through that.
You see, I got stung by, I don't allow myself to be tagged anymore, because I got stung by a friend of mine. And I was having a few beers when I used to work in little town, I suppose, hamlet, whatever, in the Canary Islands. And I was an entertainer out there. And one night my friend was entertaining, and I decided to jump in on the action. I put on a unitard and a cowboy hat, and was just dancing around the bar. And of course, there's photos and stuff. I was like, just don't put them on Facebook. Just whatever you do, don't put them on Facebook. I was coming home for a wedding, so I got, as soon as I got off the flight, I switched on my phone.
Oh, I was just about to say, if he hits you on that flight, dude, you're fucked, because you had to turn your phone off.
Yep, yeah. I was like, you absolute bastard. You absolute bastard. So he managed to tag me, all these photos of me in a unitard and a cowboy hat dancing around the bar. Anyway, since that day, no, I have to approve every tagging.
Nothing is the worst when I'm on a flight and like I'm getting into an argument over the phone with somebody through text, and they're the type of texter that texts you like paragraph upon paragraph, and you're struggling to write back a fucking sentence because they always keep going message. Dude, I will tell that flight person we're not fucking taking off until I get this conversation done with, until I can send that final text. Don't you let this person berate me with paragraphs upon paragraphs.
I was mortified, man. And before I managed to get to take it down, the wedding I went to, I saw you on Facebook there. Well, somebody put a photo of you, you were tagged, and it was like, yeah, okay, the cowboy hat and the unitard. Yep, get you. Yeah, brilliant. So yeah.
Imagine they're like, no, not that one, but I want to see that one now.
I'm the guy that's not changed his profile picture in 10 years. I can't be asked. Again, that's another for me. Why do I want to change it? People know it's me, then my name's there.
That's very bad if you're going on a dating app and you don't change your profile from like 20 years ago. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah, there is that.
if you're on Facebook, it's like, who cares? I mean, honestly,
Exactly.
people are just checking the status to see how miserable you are and then comparing their life to it. Nobody's actually like, everyone loves to see I'm having a really rough day, because then it makes them look at their life like, well, my day's not that bad. So I don't know how many people would just toss out trash on Facebook like, I fucking hate you, you're a piece of shit, and then tag somebody, and then it becomes this argument on Facebook. Then you see
Yeah.
everybody just fucking join in on it, and you're like, what the hell is happening?
I think beyond that as well is the people that are not descriptive. They just put, "I've had enough" or something like that, or "I hate this," and then people are then jumping and going, "Oh, is everything all right, hon? You're all right, babes," or
I
something.
always knew it to be true. It's like, oh,
Yes, yeah,
what are
something
you
really
talking about?
ambiguous about that. Yes, I knew it.
My God,
Yeah,
it's like, it's the weirdest thing, especially when you see someone go, I love my kids, and you start posting a bunch of picture of kids. It's like, didn't you lose them in a divorce? And haven't you not seen your kids in 10 years because you moved to Florida and became a stripper? Like, I don't understand. What are you missing about your kids? The fact that you're the one that left them? It didn't make any sense.
this is it. I mean, I thought about moving to Florida to become a stripper, but it never happened.
You should have did it.
There's still time, man. There's still time.
Imagine if there's an alternate universe where instead of us meeting through a podcast channel, I bet you at a strip club, and we just started going off and having this conversation at a
Having this
strip club.
conversation in Florida.
And then we get done and you're like, oh, by the way, that's $500. You're like, what the fuck? I was like, charging you by the minute.
Nice.
I do like the free form conversation, man. I mean, I think it's probably one of the most important things out there. It's like literally when you do something like that, it's the same thing you can get listening to your podcast, for instance, with your buddy. You get into a vibe and a chat where it's like you bring people in on the personal stuff. You bring people in on the stuff of your relationship. And I think that's what people are all looking to be a part of. You know, we isolate ourselves in groups and we isolate ourselves based on content, but people just want to be able to relate a little bit. They want to see something that's not super scripted, because I feel like a lot in the world seems pretty fucking written out, like it is one giant movie.
Yeah, certainly with us, that's what me and Daz do. Is we don't. We would have been doing that anyway. We'd have been having a beer, watching an '80s film, and chatting about it. So that's how we just came up with the format. Well, let's just do it. All right, we'll break it down into different ways of doing it. But essentially, it is two blokes having a few beers, chatting about a film, and that's as deep as it goes, really. And that's what I like about it. And even the acting. A lot of the acting work I do is improvisation for 3 hours. So it's you've got a certain story you've got to get out, but there's no script to it. You've got the story beats to get out, but you've got 3 hours, and a lot of them are murder mysteries and interactive things. You've got to deal with what the audience are giving you because you're chatting to them directly. So you've got to just go with the flow.
You just got to hit the button, record, and see where it goes. If it
Yeah.
ends up diving down a serious sex dungeon mystery, it's going to be fun. And you just got to buckle up and pray to God you get through it.
This is it. I mean, sometimes I must say, sometimes because we do have a lot of beer, sometimes when we're recording, I've listened back to the previous week and I've got no recollection of that because something has happened. Because normally out of 2 hours, it'll be edited down to an hour show that is a bit more cohesive. Because sometimes we will go off on stuff that's just not relevant or not funny or whatever else, and it just gets taken out. But yeah, I've listened to stuff and gone, I just can't remember that happening. And we're just losing it. We're laughing. I mean, there's like last week, there's something, my co-host, he laughed and farted at the same time. And we absolutely, we cried with laughter for about a minute. And he was like, I didn't know whether to keep it in. I was like, yeah, bloody right, keep it in. That's funny, man. And it's just, we properly lose it over that.
I thought it was okay to keep a fart in an episode. I had an episode a while back, and if anybody knows me personally, they know like I have some really like massive dumps.
Well, 3.5 hour ones clearly
Uh,
when you're watching Avengers.
So when I was doing these in person, I remember I had the little Zoom recorder out and we were recording, and all my buddies are sitting on a couch and they go, are we recording? I'm like, yeah, we're recording. So welcome to the podcast, guys. You know, nice to have you guys back again. And they go, stop. This is a fucking intervention. Stop sending us your shit pictures and your shit videos at night. Because I would just send a video of my face and then you would just see my face and I would be like, my eyebrows would raise up and all you hear was like all just going off. And the dude played it in the microphone and I listened to it back after I posted it. And it was like, oh my God, it was so curdling to anybody that was listening. I'm surprised if I lost. I wouldn't be surprised if I lost a few viewers from that, because that was fucking, that made me vomit.
Yeah, I've got friends that would Snapchat me a lot when they're having a dump. I would get like, it's time or something like that, and I was like, for fuck's sake. Okay, so I don't think I've got Snapchat installed anymore.
You just got to send the picture afterwards, and then they're like, "Oh, I haven't seen Robbie in a couple months. He sent me a Snapchat." You click on, oh God, why? What is that? Is that stomach cancer? Yeah.
Oh yes, some of the pictures I've had through, it's just it's quite a blokey thing to do, though, isn't it? When people send each other that.
I'm proud of it. It's like a little kid that brings up artwork home and wants it on the fridge. I just want you to know I'm doing okay. I'm eating my greens and shit.
You're gonna put it on the fridge, yeah?
It's like people are worried about you. The best way to check in is just check their poop. You're doing okay. You got some solid stool, my friend.
Nice. We went there then, didn't we? We went there.
Dude, Matt. That's some solid stool. You're eating your corn. Matt, dude, this has been perfect, man. Dude, you've given me enough of your time, brother. Please, to let people know where they can find your podcast, where they can find, I know we barely talked about it, but let people know where they can find it at, where they can check you out, anything, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that.
Don't bother.
Don't
no,
bother.
It's no, I'm kidding. It's well, a lot of our links can be found on 80sadventure.com. That takes you through to all the different podcast providers and stuff. On Twitter is at 80sadventure, Facebook /80s Adventure. So we just managed to get that 80s Adventure all over the place, really. And yeah, it's a couple of blokes having some beers, chatting about 80s films, and sometimes getting silly, sometimes not. And it's every week, and we love doing it, and it's been really nice to actually have people listen to it. We didn't know what would happen, but people are responding well. It's really nice.
So my recommendation is, if you're listening to the 80s Adventure podcast, put on your tube socks, put on your funky little wrist bracelets, bop your head down the street while listening to a nice podcast with Matt. And that's the way it goes.
Thanks. In fact, Rob, you could probably get through 3 or 4 of them on the toilet. You know, they're about an hour a piece, so you could probably do 3 or 4 at one time.
I'm sorry. Did you think 3 hours was my maximum? That's nothing.
Oh no, right? Okay. You could do. We've got about 27 episodes out at the moment.
I once made a whole fucking day out of it.
Do you have like a cushioned seat or something as well? Then?
No, but I did buy a wood toilet seat. Like one that's it is laminated glossed, so it's not like you're sitting right on wood. But that feeling of having a wood toilet seat, I was like, I went to Home Depot. I was like, hey, what's your toilet seat selection? He goes, what? I'm like, I want to be like I'm shitting in the mountains, like in the Rockies, like in a log cabin. And he goes, I know the perfect toilet seat for you. And he pulled out this wood one. I'm like, fucking perfect.
Excellent.
You wonder where all the toilet paper went during the pandemic. I'm glad I'm stocking up now, so I have multiple.
Is it in your toilet paper palace?
That is basically my home. I like to actually sometimes not really bring my phone in there because I believe it is a time for contemplation. I believe you should have like a nice little, I have a little fountain stream on the back of the toilet that kind of runs like one of those like $5 things you get as like a gift that you don't give back because it's like just stupid to give back. So
right.
I have that illuminate like a little waterfall behind my toilet, and I just sit there and then I just kind of like
find inner peace. Try
and find what some would say a soul, you know, an essence to life.
I never thought a talk about toilets would turn into this.
It gets deep with me.
It does get.
It's like going in for a splash. Make sure the water's cool, so you got to dip your toes first.
I've really enjoyed this, man. This has been a good chat.
I'm glad, man. And thank you for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank podcast. Make sure to wipe your ass.